What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again on Necrotic.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have an album review for you. And to probably a good chunk of like 2000s and 90s kids, this is probably a pretty highly anticipated one. We are going to go over the latest album from Linkin Park, From Zero. This comes out on the 15th of November on Warner Brothers Music. This band formed in 2000 in some place in California. There's a lot of places in California. They formed there.
Fair enough.
This is their 8th album overall, first one in 7 years since their last album, One More Light, and first one since the untimely death of Chester Bennington, which also happened in 2017. For those that don't know about Linkin Park, I'm kind of surprised this band was like friggin' everywhere. I want to say Hybrid Theory, their debut album, is in like the top 50 highest selling albums of all time. That's like elite company with like the Black Album and Fleetwood Mac's Rumors. That album was inescapable in 2000 all the way through probably right now. Like, their songs probably still being played on the radio by it. But yeah, this band was kind of like, I would say like one of the biggest nu metal bands, alt rock. I don't know. They were Linkin Park. I admittedly was a fan for a little while. I actually still liked their first two albums, but then I kind of dropped off because the music became less interesting, and I kind of thought they were kind of trying to sound like a nu metal version of U2. And no.
I admittedly never really got into this band. Of course, I've heard 1,000 songs because, like Nick said, it's pretty inescapable. Like, you don't go this long in life without hearing a Linkin Park song or two. And it was never personally my bag, and it still is not really my bag, but I mean, to each their own. You know, it's not to discredit the people that do like Linkin Park. It's just never been for me. I even own an album, but only because I got one for Christmas, and I didn't want to be like, I hate this band, so I just was like, thank you, and never opened it, and just kind of stuck it in a box and kept it, because the person that gave it to me is dead now, so that's pretty much why I hold on to it. At this point in the game, I was out of this style of music, and when I heard it, I was just like, meh, whatever.
That was kind of my take. Like, when I started getting out of their music, I was getting into stuff that I found just way more interesting, and this kind of screamed like more radio rock, and I was kind of getting away from that because, I mean, a lot of it was starting to become pretty boring. But needless to say, this band seems to have like maintained a level of popularity and, you know, a rabid fan base for years. And admittedly, I didn't think they were going to come back. Like, I figured after Chester left us that was probably it. Maybe the other members would do some other projects and then kind of continue on from there. So, believe me, I was kind of surprised when all of a sudden there was like a countdown to a new Linkin Park single, and they were debuting a new singer. And that would be Emily Armstrong of Dead Sarah. I'm not familiar with Dead Sarah's music at all, but she is the person that is taking over the very, very big shoes left behind by Chester Bennington. And this is also the first album with new drummer Colin Britton, who is a songwriter that, I mean, he just helps out mostly bands I'm just not a big fan of. Like, I looked at his, Wikipedia page, like, oh, he helped Papa Roach write music. Shame on him. But you know, hey, he's in on drums in here, and all right, this rollout I think has been somewhat rocky, especially when it comes down to the fan response. Like, definitely a portion of fans embraced this whole thing with open arms, like, yes, my favorite band is back. And then some fans like, I don't know. And then, well, there's some controversy that we will get to. But first, we're actually going to talk about the album, because that's why we're here.
As we all know, comeback albums can be tricky. And there's two schools of thought within that. One can be that they're going to put out an album that sounds like them just to kind of reinvigorate everybody and bring everybody back and say, hey, we're Linkin Park, remember us? Or the other school of thought would be is that they could come back and write something a little bit different, a little bit newer. They've got a new vocalist and a new drummer, so why not play with things a little bit? And this was a comeback album. And while I could say they went with the newer, exciting branch, they wrote a Linkin Park album.
That is pretty fair. I feel like a lot of this was kind of like walking the line between what their sound is and through like almost every era. There's stuff in here that reminds me a lot of Meteora and Hybrid Theory. There's also stuff that reminds me of a lot of their later stuff that I admittedly wasn't as into. But stylistically, it's very much there. But there's also stuff in here that kind of caught me off guard a bit too. So I feel like they kind of walked a line here, but for the most part, I would say They kind of played this one safe, a little bit by the numbers. They played to their strengths, and it kind of works, and it kind of doesn't. Where I think it really works, honestly, is Emily's vocals. Emily, I think, does a great job on here.
Yeah, that girl can sing, and can sing really well. And in fact, I like the kind of character that her voice has to it. It's a little bit lower registered at times and kind of raspy sounding. The gruffness is kind of reminiscent of Chester, and that's a good thing. But she obviously has some differences too that she's bringing to the table. I like her. She can sing. And that's probably one of the more shining moments of this album for me.
Honestly, I've never listened to A Lick of Dead Sarah either. Like, this was my first real exposure to her as a singer. And she has a powerful voice. She really belts it out, especially on the choruses, because these songs are all about the big hooky choruses. We'll get more into that. But she has the power in her vocals to carry them. And she does harmonize really well with Mike Shinoda. Mike Shinoda, I mean, he's still doing pretty much what you expected. Like, I mean, yeah, he's got some rapped vocals, and they do pop up in here because this is Linkin Park, and if they didn't, I'd kind of wonder.
The fans might throw the band away if he didn't rap a little bit, I'm going to be honest.
I mean, there's been some albums where, like, the rapping was very, very minimal, but that's still kind of, like, the thing that he was really known for. But he does a lot of, like, you know, emotive kind of crooning, I guess, like the Emptiness Machine, the big lead-off single. Admittedly, I kind of liked it, even though it's, like, 90% chorus, but that chorus is pretty damn hooky. It's got a pretty solid build to it, and this one kind of makes use of a limited amount of time in the song. The song's like a little bit over 3 minutes, I believe. But they make good use of the time they have to build the song and build it at a good pace to where that last particular chorus really hits as like the big anthemic just part of the song. Most of it is a steady build and energy. You get a good trade-off in vocals between Mike and Emily. It's pretty solid. You know, it's got a good up-tempo drive to it. And then, you know, builds to this big crescendo. And Linkin Park in the past has been really solid about that. Like, in terms of what they do, they know how to do it well. So pretty much I would say if you like that song, you're going to like probably a good chunk of this, because that is kind of the formula in here. Short, condensed songs that just kind of get right down to the hook. Like, you know, the choruses are generally the standout parts. The verses, I mean, sometimes they're really good. Sometimes they're just there. Sometimes they're kind of boring. But the choruses are generally bright, shining, and anthemic, and they just stick to them. Remember playing tag when you were a kid, and there was that one dickhead kid that never left base? Like, oh, look, I'm off base. I'm on base. That's them with the choruses. Their hand is permanently on base, just like that dickhead kid.
I was that dickhead kid, but I didn't leave the base because I was afraid to leave the base, because the kids in my neighborhood tagged hard.
Yeah.
And I bruised easily.
I would tackle the fuck out of you.
This dickhead kid would tackle the scared kid on the base.
Yeah.
Now, in true Linkin Park style, they did a couple more moody songs that obviously had more synths to them and were a little bit more trip-hop and moody versus having guitars and heavier parts. I say that loosely. Songs like Over Each Other, Overflow, and Good Things Go all had just notably just kind of a more trippy, relaxed vibe to it. Especially the song Overflow. That one, I think, is going to be a club hit. I think they wrote that with the specific intent to make that popular in a nightclub, because I can just picture kind of a darkly lit room and like girls dancing in cages and strobe lights going on. People are sweaty and smiley, of course, because they're happy. Nothing else, right?
Totally. Nothing else.
Nobody gets like that for no reason, right? Other than being happy. But yeah, that song, just the way it's set up and the more modernized male vocal parts that are going on in there. It sounds like it's pretty close to auto-tune, even though it's not, because I know Dude can sing. But it's got that kind of vibe to it. And Good Things Go On is kind of the same thing, albeit a little bit more of like a ballady type dirge almost. There's a lot of interplay between Mike and Emily as far as vocal harmonies are concerned. So it's not without those tropes. So if you're thinking you're going to get into this record and it's going to be just a bunch of upright choruses, I mean, it is. But if you're thinking you're not going to get at least some of the vibes that you're more comfortable with on a Linkin Park album, they're still there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different moods in here. Like, there's a lot of like reflective, lyrics and such, and songs that kind of evoke more of a like, like I'm kind of looking back on stuff in the past and kind of, looking at it through different eyes now. There's also, of course, more angsty songs, more anthemic songs. The emotional palette is broad, while I would say like the musical palette is Well, I mean, kind of just Linkin Park. The moodier songs I do think are really interesting, especially Overflow. Overflow is a really interesting song. Like, it's got, again, this big booming club beat to it. Like, they kind of just let the reverb go and that bass drum. It's more atmospherically driven. Like, it's not a big guitar driven song up until like the end where they kind of like, you know, bring up that last chorus a bit. And this band's always been pretty good at that, like, kind of electronic, trip-hoppy sort of atmosphere. Like, I mean, their DJ, I can't remember his name for the life of me. He's always been good about, you know, his samples, his sound manipulation. I always thought he was, like, really just particularly good at that. Like, it's not just scratching and such. But again, as I said, like, kind of a wide palette on here. And admittedly, there were some moments that kind of caught me off guard. Probably the biggest one, though, is Casualty. Casualty is a pretty heavy song. Like, it comes in with like probably the heaviest, sludgiest guitars, thick bass on there too. Like, that song absolutely snarls. Emily comes in screaming her guts out, and then Mike comes in belting out vocals that are very similar to Paige Hamilton from Helmet. And it sounds like a Helmet song.
Yep. Sounds like a Helmet song mixed with Human Waste Project, and that's pretty much what it sounds like. But it is noticeably more aggressive. Like, I would compare Emily to being more of a hardcore vocalist in this versus the sing-songy stuff we've been getting. Like, it's just noticeably more, like, in your face, and they keep that energy throughout the whole song. Like, I kept waiting for them to switch it up and get more into, like, a, you know, happy anthemic chorus, and it never did. It never really took that path. It stayed kind of heavy and a little bit darker.
Yeah, actually flat out vicious. Like, there's hardcore D beats in there. Again, Emily's screaming her guts out. Granted, she's like screaming in key, but the aggression is there. And honestly, it's like one of my favorite tracks on here. Like, probably one of the biggest standouts for me, just because I really wasn't expecting them to get that heavy. Because up to this point, I mean, yeah, you have like heavy rock moments. This was definitely like a little bit outside of just rock. Like, I don't know if you'd consider Helmet a metal band. It's kind of debatable, but it's definitely like heavier than most of like just like your standard radio rock. And there are some heavier tracks on here. Admittedly, Heavy is the Crown. Might have been telegraphed a little bit. It's a more up-tempo, more rockin' song. It's fast-paced. It's Faint, Part 2. It is one of the more recycled songs on here, and that is kind of the same with one of the other heavier tracks in here, Two-Faced, which it kind of sounds like a B-side off of Hybrid Theory. Like, this was maybe a song that they wrote forever ago and said, you know what, that sounds way too similar to One Step Closer, and that's our lead-off single. Maybe shelve this one.
That actually could be. I didn't think about that. Because it has that kind of early 2000s alt-metal vibe to it. It definitely sounds out of place on this record.
It sounds like old Linkin Park. Like, it sounds like kind of a dated song for them, just because, like, even like the DJ bits, like, they're scratching. Like, it's more like, you know, what you expect from like late 90s, early 2000s nu metal. And it's kind of just a straightforward formula in terms of just like a rap rock song. You have Mike belting out the verses, and then Emily coming in and delivering an admittedly pretty catchy chorus. And that's sort of a microcosm of this album. I will say a lot of this is very safe. And I mean, you know, I've listened to their other albums outside the first two. The first two are the only ones I really come back to. But I will say that I feel like they tried to cover every era of their sound and wrote kind of a fan pleaser of an album, at least as much as they could, while including a different dynamic with Emily's vocals, which again, she is great on here, but I feel like she's doing kind of like a close to Chester sort of delivery. Like, she screams, it's raspy, she's got a good powerful delivery, she nails the choruses. But when you kind of take away all the giant polish on the production and the glitz and the glamour and all that stuff, what you kind of have here are very safe, kind of watered down songs for the most part. Like, some of these songs just flat out didn't land for me. Like, Cut the Bridge is sort of an odd mix of like kind of like punky, almost new wave mixed with new metal, and it never lands. In fact, that chorus just kind of got repetitious and annoying.
The same can be said for a lot of songs on this record, to be honest. The song, I Give You Everything I Had, it's just kind of the same thing. It's a Linkin Park song. It's a verse that they spend little time on, a big anthemic chorus, and then another verse, but hold on, let's go back to the chorus. And it's like that really all the time. And like, I'm not saying it's terrible, but it's a lot of rushing to get to the same place.
I feel like a lot of this is, kind of built on the hurry up and get to the hook sort of formula. Every song seems to be in a rush to get to the chorus hook. And I don't know if that's like the whole, like, let's get every era of our fan base, every algorithm, every demographic, everyone that ever bought anything by us sort of mode. But yeah, the hooks are powerful, but there's no build to it. And that's my issue with Over Each Other. It has the makings of a really good song, but I feel like it just hurries to the hook, and you miss out on a lot of building in there.
And it's mostly because that song was only 2 minutes and 20 seconds long, which is another thing that pissed me off about that song. Because once again, by the time you get to this point in the record, you're 5 songs in and you want something with a little bit different dynamic, because the first 3 songs kind of really sound the same. So you get down to this song and it starts out a little bit darker and kind of another trip-hop kind of crooning vibe to it, right? And then they immediately make it into a full song that they rush to the chorus. Like, that song didn't even need that. And not only did you rush to the chorus, but again, you did it in the shortest song that could have been something different. And, like, why?
Yeah, most of these songs, like, again, while they have powerful choruses, like, the music itself just, I don't know, it feels kind of phoned in and, again, very self. Like, even the last track, Good Things Go, while I'm sure, like, the whole idea was to have, like, this big, kind of epic, almost ballady song at the end, it sounds like it's tailor-made for a Michael Bay movie, which, I mean, Linkin Park's been in, Michael Bay movie soundtracks before, so no surprise there. But the whole song feels like it's just kind of like drawn-out melodrama. Like, I know its intent is to be reflective and emotional, but it feels just very bland, like a prom slow dance song being played by people that graduated years ago. Now, before I get on the rating here, which it's not going to be that favorable. Anyway, I do want to address like some of the controversies, especially with this, rollout. I think their comeback was kind of hindered by Emily Armstrong's past. Now, I don't know if any of this reflects where she is now, but she used to be a member of the Church of Scientology, which is a cult of dipshits. Just gonna be completely honest there. In fact, when I saw I got a chance to make fun of Scientology in this review, I was like, yay, because they suck. Fuck them. Anyway, one Cedric Bixter-Zavala, I'm sorry if I screwed up your name, one of the main dudes behind the Mars Volta, called her out because she was in attendance for the trial of Danny Masterson, which some might remember him from that 70s show. Others might remember him from being an absolute fucking slimeball. Anyway, she was there in support of Danny Masterson, probably not fully knowing everything that he did, because Scientology, they will support whoever is going to court, regardless of what they do, because again, it's a cult of scumbags. But she kind of got called out on that, and she addressed that and said, like, listen, I didn't know everything. I was just told to go to support, and that's a Scientology thing. I don't know if she, again, is still a Scientologist, but some of those overlapping views with Scientology and, well, this band in particular, some of that shit didn't line up for me, because I know that cult really dogs on people who unalive themselves. And with, Chester, I just felt like that was maybe like a little tone deaf initially there. But I don't know. I kind of just weighed in on that, because regardless of how I felt about this band, I do really respect Chester. Like, I thought he was an awesome singer and just a genuinely good human being.
I do too. As much as I never liked Linkin Park, I did like Chester Bennington. And having watched a couple of documentaries with the man and all the work he did with, kids and just his kind of outward, take care of your mental health stance and, hey, you're going to be okay. And, obviously didn't work out so well for him in the end, but nonetheless, he was a good man. I enjoyed that guy. I think I like Chester Bennington more than I like Linkin Park, to be honest.
So when it comes down to this album, I'm just going to give it a 2. It's okay. It's very safe. It's pretty much, I would say, maybe what fans wanted here. Like, they wanted the hooks. They wanted big anthemic songs, stuff that is relatable. Like, I'd say like all the lyrics in here are just very relatable platitudes that they have gone over before. And, I'm sure those lyrics probably mean a lot more to them on a personal level, but to me, they kind of just come across as stock alt rock stuff. None of it on here is like flat out bad. It's just predictable. It's very samey. There's some moments in here that really do shine. I do really think Emily absolutely owns on here. I think she's an excellent vocalist. I might even actually check out Dead Sarah after this. But in terms of like possibly rekindling any sort of nostalgic love that I've had for this band in the past, it really didn't do that for me at all. But it might do that for you guys. You won't know until you give it a chance. I mean, if you're a longtime Linkin Park fan, I'd say give it a listen, form your own opinions. Who knows, you might really like it. If you were never a Linkin Park fan, this is probably not going to change anything, but still, check it out.
I was never a Linkin Park fan. This didn't really change anything for me either. I'm going to give it a 2 as well, mostly because of Emily's vocals. I think Emily is a great, solid vocalist. I think she brought a lot of flair and character to this band and kind of got a chance to add her own 2 cents. She can really pipe it out, so that's good. Other than that, it's a Linkin Park record. There are reasons I never liked this band just because I never really just got into the music. I just found it to be kind of boring. And the same can be said for here, unfortunately. I think the kids are going to love it. I think they wanted to write a record full of hits, and they knew how to do it, and they did it. So I think the existing Linkin Park fans are still going to find actually something to latch on to, because it does sound a lot like this band. Like, they haven't really changed very much as far as their overall formula is concerned. And so if you like that side of the band, you'll probably still like this. Again, it's not for me. This did not change my opinion, other than the fact Emily can sing. So, once again, yeah, form your own opinions. Don't listen to us just because I don't get into it. Doesn't mean you won't. If you've liked this band, give it a shot.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We also now have memberships. They are only 99 cents, and we will be doing some members-only live streams here at some point. So we just got to find a time. Actually, we'll probably try to work a date out or something like that. That is our big perk for the memberships. And we also have really stupid emojis, because that's how we roll here. This is our new way to support the channel. We're trying to get away from Patreon. And we still have our store too, thrallsmetal.com. We have t-shirts and hats still. And yeah, if you want to help us out in any way, you know, the store, or click the join button down below.
And as always, tons of stuff going on here at Thralls of Metal. You all know the deal. I'm not going to keep talking your ear off about it. Live streams, album reviews, discography rankings. We do stuff here all the time at Thralls of Metal. We do it for you guys because we appreciate all of our fans. This has been an incredible ride. We're about to hit 20,000 subscribers, you guys. Thank you so much for that. It blows my mind. I cannot believe this channel is what it is. We appreciate you, all of you.
Yeah, thank you guys for every bit of support you guys give us, and I am going to work on something for a 20,000 subscriber giveaway here soon. But either way, you get one more big thank you because you guys are awesome, and we will catch you later.